All right, gonna do a weekly recap. I'm only gonna be going over AM and PM session just because uh it's really the same shit pre-market, just lower volatility and same thing with the Asian market. So going into the day, um beautiful pre-market long right here. But market opens, we already swept out the draw. We end up selling off higher, right? There's another high up here, but ES sweeps it and then we immediately flip, right? So now I'm bearish and basically I'm just waiting for um an entry. There's no entry there. We get a V shape off down here, and then we slowly chop up, not entering on any of that, and then we drop down again, and it's just chop all over basically. Um, so right here, this is an entry that I would take, right? Because honestly, would I take it? I don't know. And I lied. This is Asia session. What am I fucking doing? Um, But yeah, we like chop down. We got displacement down right here. Where are we on Asia? Okay. Yeah, we got displacement below this low, right? We inverse these gaps. So basically, if we come back into these gaps, which would be a 5-minute gap, I would expect it to hold to take these lows, probably equal lows. But then that's also Asia. So letting no trades whatsoever on Monday. Um, Going into the day on Tuesday. We displaced below this low. Hold on, let me drag ES over to it. So on Tuesday, right, we displaced below this low. I believe we do have an SMT. Yeah, that's a pretty fat low that we have an SMT at. But then again, the displacement is pretty fucking valid in my opinion. So even though we do have an SMT, it still looks like the draw is lower. Um, I still personally don't like this because of how uncorrelated we are. ES, as you can see, is just kind of staying in the same range. We even swept out all they came up to this high and swept it out. So we're extremely uncorrelated. But this short would not be bad, but you would get break even on this, right? Your stops have to be here. You would target this low, definitely get break evens. Will this gap probably support price? This big 1-minute gap, yes, but it is hard to tell also with how uncorrelated we are. Um, So then we sweep out the low, right? There's still an SMT, and we finally get a nice flip off of it, and then we chop. Uh, but from this, I am bullish, you know, just because that flip is a V shape. So just waiting for some sort of entry, and we do get something here, but then again, it's also just chop still, and there's no way you can tell that price is officially gonna like go to this high, even though it looks like the draw. We could sweep out these lows, get a nice retrace right here, then go up. So even though I marked that out, it's really not an entry I would take, especially because this is not a very V shape. It's just more U shape. Chop right here, and then like slow kind of trickle to inverse that fair value gap. Um, what else do we have? So ES sweeps this high, same time as NQ does, and we start going up more. And again, there's no entries here. If you are bullish though, this should be a protected low. I want to see if it hit equilibrium. No, we didn't. So not as protected, but just because of this displacement above this high, this range should hold. If I was confident on a long, there was no gaps. And like if we inverse everything, a read from this gap, your stops have to be like down here, but you take a read to this high, wait for a better fill or something, 1.5 or R. But we never even retrace. So no entries there. Blah, blah, blah. chop around again, chop, chop, and then yeah, nothing in PM again. So then again, Monday, Tuesday, no trades at all. Nothing in AM or PM for me. No, no, no. Okay, 9:30. Eh, eh. Okay. So Wednesday, this isn't bad in my opinion. It's another break-even trade though. Our draw is higher still, right? We have higher targets on both ES and NQ. NQ's closer to it. So, but ES is more bearish also. So just keep that in mind. We tapped this for rally gap, right? Looking at this leg, we came into 50% perfectly, right? So this should be a protected low off of that rejection. We inverse that gap right there. Stopped at the B low because we can definitely soup this, but we should not come down to here. And if you take it up to there, even if you thought it's a protective low, right? Still, it's good RR. You get break even right here because we this high. We don't really displace above it. We just chop around and do fuck all. Um, Then we do get this. We get a little SMT at this low, and then this was a nice displacement in V-shaped inverse this gap. This shows clearly the direction that price wants to go off of that SMT, this very clear inverse. Um, so there was this trade, but still, like if you look at it, it's chop mostly, you know. You have to go break even at that high and you get break even on that. So another break even trade. And then let me see if there's anything else here. So we sweep out that high, right? And we get this displacement back down. That is beautiful for shorts. Honestly, these gaps will hold. Just like honestly, I probably put it there. And then you take it to these lows. Those are pretty free. Um, that's also like trading reversals, and we are bullish, so not really a big fan on that. If I were to take that, it would be definitely lower risk. But then again, like it was a really good reaction off of that high. So what I would look for though is a continuation to the downside. Um, which I would say after this gap is closed, then we should go lower. But then again, like huge gaps down here, and we're chopping down, inversing this. So no entries there. We inverse everything in the leg, it looks like, but then we flip off of that, and then we chop around again. So really just not good price action whatsoever. So Wednesday, another no trade day. So yeah, we came back down into the range, right? So we are still bullish. Um, but here's what you can see. This was also when Trump was talking at 11 a.m. right here. So no trades during the AM session because as you can see, this is what happened before Trump was speaking. So there's no way you could really take anything. We displaced above this high though, which was good. And here we go. Okay. So yeah, we displace above that high. Yes, gets above that high too. And we expect this 5-minute gap to hold. This isn't what I'm looking for right here, but we come down, we retrace, we wick this pretty good, and then we get this reaction inversing that gap. This is free as fuck, but Trump was speaking, so can't take that trade. Ended up failing, but I think it was because of Trump. You know, not a lot of people are going to be trading that. Um, but after Trump was done speaking, right, there was a pretty decent trade right here. We displace below these lows, we inverse everything in this range, and we have this big gap that we expect to reject from, right? Um, so yeah, you can take a read right here because we didn't sweep out these lows yet. Then when we sweep that out, you know, we get this. We're bullish, but ES is just so much more bullish. So we get to put in an SMT here. and with no actual entries. So it's tough. And then PM just keeps going, no entries. Again, it's just chop, you know, just all chop. So there was a read on Thursday after Trump spoke, but that was it. So far we have one maybe trade this whole entire week. Okay. So going into Friday, scroll over on ES because only I usually don't do ES on these weekly recaps, but because we were so uncorrelated, bro, like I just have to show that because I learned definitely a decent amount, about I'll go over it after this, but I learned a decent amount about how I should be trading and what I'm doing wrong and what I can do better. Um, anyways, right? 9:30 opens right here, we dump right here, we get a inverse. Um, and this was a 5 minute gap right here, which honestly it isn't bad, but it's just not confirmed that we really like we do want to go higher, but it's not confirmed. Inversing this gap technically is confirmed, but like oh yeah, we had 9:45 news. That's what threw me off. This would have been decent, but 9:45 news red folder, so I wasn't taking anything before that. But what we do is we sweep out this high, we inverse everything in the leg again, and the draw would be this low and these lows, right? And we had a 5 minute gap right here. So this 5 minute gap is like almost 100% gonna hold us because we swept that. We got a V shape down, right? So we are bearish, and this 5 minute gap should support us because we haven't swept anything yet. So basically, when you get a flip, until you get like that should be a decent amount to one direction wherever it flipped towards should be a decent amount, but to at least one liquidity point. So if it has yet to sweep that off of a flip, then like that next low in a bear scenario is like pretty free. So this 5 minute gap right here, it's pretty obvious that should definitely hold us lower, and that's a good read right there. Um, Trying to see what else. Um, okay, so there was this trade, right? So obvious displacement lower, this low. We want to sweep out this low, basically. We have a giant gap right here. Big 3 minute gap up here. We retrace to equilibrium with the range, right? Yep, equilibrium. So all I want is just displacement from it and showing that this high is protected. Um, so what we get is I wanted at least for this trade to work out, I needed at least a 1 RR, right? We close way below that right here, and we don't get a retrace before we go lower. So there is zero entries for me right there. Um, so yeah, that's literally the explanation for that. There's no other explanation for that. But now I'm just wondering, are we still bearish because we wick this? Are we gonna get a V shape out of this and go for these highs, or what are we gonna do? We displace below this low, right? And we don't get a retrace. Retrace right here to take it lower would have been fire, but we don't really get that. We sweep a low on both NASDAQ and ES. We get a flip, and then so basically after this, right, we get a flip, but we have nothing else confirming that we are going higher. And we're still, bearish. So for the short term. So basically I want to see how this low is reacted towards. If we go down there, sweep it, and then go back up, probably going to be bullish, with good price action. If we go down here, we close below this. Excuse me. We're probably bearish and we can target lower. The next target would be down here. So we do come into like a 4 minute gap right here, but like it's just kind of sketchy because yes, this is mitigated, but like we could definitely still come up here, sweep that, and go lower. But this is the freest trade ever, bro. We come down, we get a huge displacement below this low. Our target is right here. We get close to it, right? And then we come back up, we retrace into this big for Valley Gap where this is going to take us lower, bro. Everything else is, mitigated up here. We're not gonna, besides like this, and we're not gonna come all the way back up to mitigate that. So everything right here should not come this high. The highest it should go is these fair value gaps, which should support us lower. So for me, if I'm taking a read off of a fair value gap, I want at least a 1.5 R because it's going to be lower win rate. And also, I don't have a lot of experience with it. So not only will it be lower win rate, but I will also be sizing lower on it. So I want more of a, profit factor for it because if I go 1 RR, not really going to be getting much out of that. I want to go for at least 1.5, aim for 2. So where I would put my fill would be I would enter as soon as we get to this point, and it looks like it went up pretty quickly. So I'll probably get a better fill like right here. Stops at these highs right here. Should not come to those highs, and you take it lower, and boom, that's free as fuck. Then we start chopping because that was a target for the day. And yeah. Now I want to do something interesting, right? Because on the 1 minute, obviously there wasn't a lot of entries, but I'm gonna go on the 5 minute and I want to see what entries I could have gotten. Because on the 5 minute this week was a lot more, it always will be more clean, but it was like clean enough to take entries on this week. So, yeah, nothing on Monday. I'll need to look at ES for that. Nothing. Yeah, literally nothing. Nothing on Tuesday on the 5 minute. Yeah, nothing on Tuesday for the 5 minute. Okay. Now this is pretty clean in my opinion. We get a flip off of here. We inverse all these gaps, right? Let's just check to make sure ES isn't doing some fucking wild weird shit because it's on some fucking ecstasy this fucking week. Okay. Yeah, ES did do some weird shit. We should look at that. But so looking at this, right? This is one of the key things that I want to talk about is Nasdaq, we inverse everything in this leg. ES, we didn't, right? What I need to focus on is Nasdaq being the main asset because I only trade Nasdaq. So whatever Nasdaq is showing me, I want to, trade that. I don't care if ES is still in this gap because if I'm using both of those, the fact that both of them are gonna align and then take a trade, that is gonna be such a it's just not gonna happen enough for me to be sane and become like a profitable trader and make hella money. Until I actually have enough uh funding behind it in order to, take a trade or two a month or something like that. So going into the future, if Nasdaq inverses all this shit, I don't care about fair value gaps on ES. I care about liquidity points, SMTs. That's what I will still care about. So we inverse everything right here. We have this 5 minute fair value gap. This 5 minute fair value gap will support us lower. Enter on the 5 minute, stops up here, take it to these lows. Yeah. So yes, you would have entered beginning of PM session and ended at the end of the day, but still 5 minute read. So there's one read on Wednesday, right? Okay, this is clean. See on the 5 minute right here, you enter off of the inverse of this gap, stops at the low of this. You can still wick, and then TP at this high. It is a 1 to 2, so not the best risk reward, but if you're entering on the 5 minute, that is not bad whatsoever. Put in the SMT here, you go break even, and then it hits. So yeah, entry right there. And then another entry, we come into 15-minute gap. We come into a 15-minute, like, why am I saying that? We come into a 15-minute gap. right? And we inverse these 5-minute gaps, and we have 5-minute gaps lower. These gaps should support us to this high. Easy, you know? Was ES doing any weird shit? Nope. ES was not doing any weird shit. So that's another good trade on the 5-minute. Uh, yeah, okay. That was still during PM session. Like, thing is with these trades is like, yes, you can take this, but you're gonna be trading from 2:30 to like you're gonna be trading on like average, it seems at least an hour and a half for these trades, just because the conditions are so bad. Like, do I necessarily want to be sitting in this trade for that long? Absolutely fucking not. I don't. I'm gonna have shit. So if that's the only trade I can take, I will take a 5-minute read. But I would much prefer my 5-minute gap or just any gap displacement from it, enter on that, because that hits pretty quick usually. Um, and then this was fucking beautiful actually. Um, we get a sweep of this high, we flip off of it, right? ES. Holy fuck. Jesus Christ. NASDAQ and ES sweep something. We both get a V shape out of it, right? Yes, ES has this tiny 5-minute gap, but we're looking on NASDAQ. We're focusing on NASDAQ. Who gives a fuck about the gaps on ES? But I've noticed, especially from this week, is that when NASDAQ looks bearish, right? We inverse everything that leg, and ES is like in sort of like some sort of gap. That doesn't fucking matter whatsoever. It doesn't do anything inside of the gap. You would expect that gap to be inverse because NASDAQ is so much more bearish. And so like if let's say we fill in like some 4-hour gap or something and NASDAQ is close to a low or something, which did happen. That was the last trade on this day. That 1-minute gap down here. We're not just gonna react from that 4-hour gap, even though it is a very good gap for us to react off of. It's a very high time frame gap. We are still going to complete the draw because that is the main mission for markets is to sweep out liquidity and just target liquidity. So that is the number one target for everything. If NASDAQ is still showing signs that it's going lower to this point, yes, filled a 4-hour gap or something, we're still going lower to that point. That draw is still there, and we are still going to execute that. And we have how long to respect that gap? We have 4 hours to respect that gap. More than that, we have however long it wants to take inside of that gap to inverse or respect it, you know? So if the draw is lower on NASDAQ and we come into a gap or anything on ES, don't give a fuck. That's basically what I'm saying. So getting back to this, right? We flip, very good flip. We inverse this 5-minute. We open up a 5-minute. That 5-minute is going to support us to this low, these lows. If you take a read right here, 5-minute gap read, expecting that to support us to this low, fire ass trade, and no other 5-minute gap taps in this. But like, just basically just spend more time on the 5-minute. I wrote some stuff. I don't even know if it's still here, to be honest. It probably went away. I'm not gonna lie. Hold on, let me go on like the where. Okay, no, it's still there. Okay, so I wrote some things to some points to go over. First point, spend more time on the 5-minute. Taking trades off of the 5-minute is viable, and the only reason why you take entries on the 1-minute is to get a better fill. If I want to take 5-minute reads with better RR, simply enter off of a 5-minute gap that you expect to hold price or lower time frame for value gaps if there are none, So even though we inverse this bullish gap, right here, don't just enter on the inverse because the RR is so ass on that. It's like literally a 1-to-1. Wait for a retrace to any sort of gap. In this case, we have perfect 5-minute gap, doubles your RR. Um, if we don't have a 5-minute gap, maybe we have a 3-minute gap. You expect this to hold. So that's basically what that is. this point, second point, you can sweep a high, retrace, and then go higher. When I notice no displacement above a high, I see it as we are now bearish, which is true, but not that the high time frame is bearish. Simply, it can frame reversals if we are bearish, and if we are bullish, it just means we may not want to go higher yet. Not bearish until BISTs are inverse and SIBIs are supported. So basically, if we are in a bullish trend, right, and we sweep a high and we get a V shape down, temporarily our target is lower, right? Until it proves that it wants to go higher again. But I need to keep in mind that the higher time frame, we are bullish, and my main objective should be taking longs, if the signs present itself, you know. And then this is the last one. Oh my God, I like to yap. Okay. So we are in a certain trend. When we are in a certain trend, I use both assets to see what's swept, if there's an SMT, and if we are inside in balance. What I've noticed is that if we are bearish, we displace below a low, and let's say NQ has nothing but ES taps to a high time frame fair value gap. Until the draw is met on NQ, that fair value gap on ES doesn't matter. It will only confuse you. Also, this week has been extremely uncorrelated, so SMTs were all over the place. This has helped me understand that not all SMTs matter as much as other SMTs. Um, Now I lost my place. When the draw for the high time frame puts in an SMT, that does matter. When in like a high time frame draw and then we start displacing lower, that matters. That's a high time frame SMT, you know. But when a 1 minute SMT that goes against our bias, that doesn't really matter, you know. It shows that conditions are probably more poor, or maybe we're just more or uncorrelated, or we're on the wrong asset or something. It just shows one of those signs, but it doesn't mean that the draw is lower now, you know. The SMT could still bring us higher. It's just something to kind of note, you know. It will only confuse you and lessen the amount of conviction I have just because of some little SMT. Now, this doesn't mean that the small SMT won't cause a retrace, but shouldn't be anything big unless you are wrong on the bias. Lower time frame SMTs are just something to note, not something that should 100% completely invalidate a certain idea and prevent you from executing when everything else is aligned. Yep. Yep. I mean, I said it perfectly there. I don't know. Um, yeah, so this week I also took absolutely zero trades. None, not on eval. I didn't actually have an eval this week. I don't know if I would have taken anything on eval just because conditions were so ass. Um, and none on my fundeds. Took zero trades this week. It's not necessarily a bad thing. There were some trades I should have taken, but honestly, most of them were in PM session, and I don't really trade PM session or have the time, especially because school. Oh my God. But like this week has made me notice things, like even in choppy conditions, like showing me what SMTs matter, making myself remember that, making myself remember about higher time frame trends, and just staying on the higher time frame. Staying on the 5 minute is for longer is much better than staying on the 1 minute, glued to the fucking screen, because that shit's gonna rot your fucking brain. Um, and yeah, yeah, that's basically it. I also, I guess, add another entry model of sort. Um, what was I saying? Okay, yeah. So three entry models, right? My normal one, retrace to a gap following the trend, displacement from that gap, creating a protected high or low. That's the first model. Second model is a obvious displacement before below a low or above a high, and with a fair value gap that you expect to support it. Um, and also 5 minute reads if I want to. But the 5 minute reads will always be some sort of retrace on the 5 minute or even a higher time frame, I guess, but probably not, probably just a lower time frame, but any retrace to a fair value gap. Um, and yeah, those are my three models now. So I've added more models, all that I'm confident with and that I've seen Price do a bunch. And also just, I guess, better at watching Price. Um, like, bro, I swear to God, my patience stats are like maxed out because yes, I did want to trade. Yes, I was about to enter trades on some stuff. All of them were good, in my opinion. Um, but I never executed, and I was perfectly fine with that. And I still am fine with that. And that just shows that I'm willing to wait in order to get what I deserve, you know? Not even that I deserve, like not even that I'm owed, but what I've just put all this work in for, you know? And I know where I'm gonna be, and I'm taking every single step to get there. I know I will get there. It's just a matter of just patience, I guess. So yeah, that's it.